Hollywood's golden age, roughly spanning from the 1920s to the late 1960s, was a dazzling era that gave birth to larger-than-life movie stars, iconic romances on screen, and the carefully curated illusion of the American dream. But beneath the glitz and glamour, the film industry was also steeped in secrecy. Actors, actresses, and studio executives were acutely aware that any hint of homosexuality or behavior straying from heteronormative expectations could destroy an entire career. Whether bound by morality clauses in their contracts or hounded by gossip columnists ever on the lookout for scandal, many Hollywood figures had to disguise or entirely conceal their true selves. Despite the risks, some stars quietly managed to live as authentically as they could. Others concealed or obscured personal truths until later in life. Join us as we delve into the real-life narratives behind the on-screen personas, examining how each of these 10 Golden Age figures navigated Hollywood's minefield of image, morality clauses, and public scrutiny. Their personal struggles and triumphs reflect both the cost of secrecy and the resilience of those who dared to live authentically, even when the stakes were impossibly high. William Haynes. William "Billy" Haynes epitomizes the tension between personal authenticity and the demands of classic Hollywood. Discovered in the 1920s, Haynes rapidly became a leading man under MGM. His films, such as Show People, 1928, showcased a breezy comedic charm that endeared him to audiences. But while he soared to fame, he lived with a secret the studio wanted buried. He was gay. MGM's head, Louis B. Mayer, reportedly offered Haynes a stark choice: agree to a studio-arranged marriage or give up his contract. Haynes refused to abandon his partner, Jimmy Shields. That defiance all but ended his film career. Over time, he found a second calling as an interior designer, working with Hollywood elites, including Joan Crawford, who called Haynes and Shields the happiest married couple in town. Haynes's graceful pivot from star actor to top-tier decorator underscored a remarkable self-determination rare for the period. Although forced out of acting, he lived openly with Shields for nearly 5 decades. Their enduring union, in an era of intense stigma, has turned Haynes into an emblem of standing by one's principles. Even after leaving the silver screen, he remained a behind-the-scenes icon who, by example, paved the way for future performers who would one day hope to live and love freely. Ramon Novarro. A contemporary of Rudolph Valentino, Ramon Novarro became one of the silent screen's greatest heartthrobs. Born in Mexico as José Ramón Gil Samaniego, he found stardom in Hollywood through roles emphasizing his looks and charm. Most famously, Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, 1925. As his fame grew, so did speculation about his private life. Rumors swirled that Novarro was gay or bisexual, and that the studio contrived stories linking him to actresses to quell suspicion. Unlike some peers who entered sham marriages, Novarro never took a wife. Raised devoutly Catholic, he reportedly wrestled with guilt over his sexuality. Meanwhile, publicists took every precaution to protect his Latin lover image, steering press coverage away from any whiff of scandal. A shift in audience taste and the arrival of talkies eventually slowed Novarro's career. Though he still took film and TV roles, his heyday was over by the mid-1930s. Tragically, Novarro's life ended in violence in 1968 when 2 brothers murdered him at his home. The killers claimed they believed he had money hidden away, and the aftermath saw tabloids sensationalizing lurid details, overshadowing his cinematic contributions. In the decades since, historians and LGBTQ+ advocates have worked to restore a balanced perspective, recognizing Novarro's talent and acknowledging the rigid constraints he faced. Cary Grant. Few faces are as emblematic of classic Hollywood elegance as Cary Grant's. Born Archibald Alec Leach in Bristol, England, he rose from vaudeville performer to star in sophisticated comedies such as Bringing Up Baby, 1938, and thrillers like North by Northwest, 1959. Grant's charm, wit, and impeccable timing turned him into one of the most bankable leading men of his generation. Behind the scenes, rumors swirled about his close relationships with men, notably actor Randolph Scott, with whom he shared a home for years. Industry insiders whispered, while fan magazines called their place Bachelor Hall, painting it as a carefree spot of perpetual parties. Grant's multiple marriages, 5 in total, added to the public's confusion. Some saw these unions as attempts to subdue incessant rumors. Grant rarely engaged with speculation. Even late in life, he deflected questions about his sexuality with humor or denial. The debate continues. Some biographers claim he was gay or bisexual, while others say he and Scott were simply tight-knit friends. However, Grant's unassailable screen persona meant the public largely left these questions on the margins. He remains an icon of polished sophistication and comedic brilliance, with a private life that still intrigues film buffs and cultural historians. Marlon Brando. With performances that fundamentally changed film acting, Marlon Brando occupies a rarefied space in Hollywood history. Whether it was A Streetcar Named Desire, 1951, or The Godfather, 1972, he commanded attention like few others, bringing method acting to the forefront and shaping generations of performers to come. Brando's personal life was as unorthodox as his acting style. He fathered numerous children, married multiple times, and openly supported civil rights and Native American causes. Yet he also hinted at having had homosexual experiences, once stating he was not ashamed of them. Such admissions rattled the mid-century sensibilities of fans who saw him as a hyper-masculine rebel. Among his closest friends was actor Wally Cox, with whom he maintained a profoundly intimate bond. After Cox died, Brando kept his ashes for years, an act that prompted speculation about the nature of their relationship. Whether romantic or platonic, Brando clearly valued emotional depth over traditional definitions. He later endured personal tragedies within his family, faced legal battles, and maintained a volatile relationship with Hollywood studios. Despite the turmoil, his performances remain towering achievements, and his frankness about sexuality, rare for the era, continues to fascinate audiences and biographers alike. Wally Cox. Wally Cox was nothing like Marlon Brando on screen. Known for his meek, mild roles, especially as the lovable schoolteacher in Mr. Peepers, Cox projected a gentle comedic persona that resonated throughout the 1950s. Born in Detroit, he relocated to Illinois in his youth, where he forged a friendship with Brando that lasted for life. Rumors abounded about the possibility of a deeper connection between the two men, fueled in part by Brando's later admissions of same-sex experiences. While Cox married and largely avoided the glare of tabloid scrutiny, some acquaintances described him as an introvert who never quite fit the standard Hollywood model of masculinity. His bond with Brando stood out for its emotional closeness. Cox died unexpectedly in 1973, leaving Brando profoundly grief-stricken. Brando famously kept Cox's ashes by his bedside, a gesture that sparked further gossip. Though they never publicly identified the nature of their friendship, the depth of their intimacy suggests a relationship that transcended platonic norms of the time. Cox remains a fondly remembered figure for his comedic talent and quiet kindness, while his role in Brando's life endures as a source of speculation about both men's personal truths. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter's sunny, all-American looks propelled him to teen idol status in the 1950s. Born Arthur Andrew Kelm, he was rebranded as Tab Hunter by an agent who saw star potential in his wholesome demeanor and athletic build. Films like Battle Cry, 1955, and Damn Yankees, 1958, cemented his status as a box office draw, and he even scored a chart-topping single, Young Love, in 1957. Behind the meticulously managed public persona, Hunter was gay. Studio publicists arranged dates with starlets, feeding the fan magazines a steady diet of heteronormative fantasies. Off-camera, Hunter navigated a secret relationship with Anthony Perkins, then another rising talent. Mindful of the stakes, they kept their romance largely hidden, aware that exposure could lead to scandal and box office disaster. As Hollywood's structures changed in the 1960s, Hunter shifted into stage work and smaller film roles. Decades later, he chose to share his story in his 2005 autobiography, Tab Hunter Confidential, revealing the strain of living two lives and confirming the rumors that had shadowed him for years. Hunter's candor resonated in a new era, shedding light on the lengths to which 1950s stars went to protect their careers, and the personal costs of that hidden existence. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins gained permanent pop culture recognition as Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960. Despite that unsettling role, Perkins was a gentle, introspective individual off-screen, the son of actor Osgood Perkins. After earning an Oscar nomination for Friendly Persuasion, 1956, he seemed poised for leading man status. Yet the psychologically fraught Bates would follow him throughout his career. Perkins's private life was marked by a constant need for discretion. Rumored to be gay or bisexual, he had a quiet relationship with Tab Hunter at one point, and was linked to other men in entertainment circles. Like many in that era, he never publicly proclaimed his sexuality, and studios maneuvered to hide anything that clashed with the heteronormative image they needed to sell. In 1973, he married photographer Berinthia Barry Berenson, with whom he had two sons, a move that surprised Hollywood watchers. Some interpreted it as genuine love. Others saw it as an attempt to sidestep rumors. Tragically, Perkins was diagnosed with HIV during the height of the AIDS crisis. He kept his status private until his death from AIDS-related pneumonia in 1992. Afterward, many reflected on the emotional toll that secrecy and stigma had taken, seeing in Perkins an example of a gifted actor who struggled to harmonize personal truth with professional demands in an unforgiving industry. James Dean. James Dean remains the emblem of restless youth, thanks to three major films: East of Eden, 1955, Rebel Without a Cause, 1955, and Giant, 1956, all completed before his death in a 1955 car accident at just 24. His magnetic performances and brooding presence helped define teenage angst for generations. Off-screen, Dean's private life was veiled with rumors suggesting he was bisexual or fluid in his attractions. Some pointed to possible relationships with older men like Rogers Brackett, who mentored and financially supported him, and speculated about closeness with his Rebel Without a Cause co-star, Sal Mineo. Dean's romance with actress Pier Angeli was heavily publicized, though whether it was genuine love or partly a studio-driven narrative remains murky. Dean himself gave cryptic quotes, fueling speculation that he was open to varied experiences. Dean's untimely death only amplified the fascination with every detail of his life. With no opportunity to speak openly in later years, the swirl of competing stories persists. Fans and historians debate whether Dean's rebellious image included breaking sexual taboos of the era. What is certain is his monumental impact on cinema. Despite a career spanning just a handful of years, Dean's legacy endures as a symbol of nonconformity, youthful disenchantment, and the tragic allure of unfulfilled potential. Richard Burton. Richard Burton is famous for his superb Shakespearean background, velvety voice, and fiery relationships, most notably with Elizabeth Taylor, whom he married and divorced twice. Born in Wales in 1925, Burton scaled the heights of Hollywood with roles in Beckett, 1964, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, 1966, and numerous other high-profile films. His commanding on-screen presence combined with a tumultuous personal life made him a tabloid fixture. In certain theatrical and Hollywood circles, there were occasional whispers that Burton's amorous pursuits might have extended beyond women. Stories circulated about him having discreet encounters with men, though definitive proof never emerged. The speculation may have also been fueled by his heavy drinking and tempestuous emotional life, which some saw as a struggle for deeper validation. Whatever truth lay behind these whispers was overshadowed by his celebrated public relationship with Taylor, which was itself intense enough to consume the tabloids. Burton's involvement in the jet-set lifestyle, fueled by expensive jewelry, extravagant vacations, and public quarrels, provided endless gossip fodder. He died in 1984, leaving behind a revered body of work and one of the most famous Hollywood love sagas of all time. For those aware of the rumors, Burton remains a symbol of how even the biggest stars could be subject to unconfirmed speculation within the rumor-laden entertainment industry. Dick Sargent. Dick Sargent is best known for taking over the role of Darren Stevens from Dick York on Bewitched in 1969. His amiable demeanor made him a familiar face on TV throughout the late 60s and early 70s. Born as Richard Stanford Cox, unrelated to Wally Cox, Sargent had show business roots but spent years trying to land the defining role that finally arrived with Bewitched. While he played the affable suburban husband on screen, Sargent concealed his homosexuality from the public. Like so many of his peers, he recognized that a gay identity could ruin his career. Although he never married, he managed to avoid intense tabloid scrutiny, with fan magazines occasionally describing him simply as a perpetual bachelor. In the early 1990s, Sargent made the bold decision to come out publicly. By then, he was battling prostate cancer and felt compelled to speak his truth. He subsequently became an advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and used his platform to promote tolerance at a time when acceptance was far from universal. Sargent passed away in 1994, leaving behind a legacy as someone who, despite the constraints of a more repressive era, ultimately chose honesty. His late-life revelation provided hope and affirmation for others who had lived in the shadows. Hollywood's golden age is often remembered for its glitz and glamour, yet behind the polished facade was a system demanding strict conformity. Some walked away rather than deny who they were, while others found fleeting solace in hidden relationships or performed public illusions to protect their standing. Careers rose to dazzling heights even as personal truths were suppressed, leaving many to navigate an exhausting double life. In doing so, they quietly paved the way for later generations of performers who would inherit a slightly more open environment. Their experiences lay bare the contradictions of an industry that both reveres artistic authenticity and enforces a rigid set of moral codes. Each hidden struggle underscores how far society has come in recognizing and celebrating diverse identities, and how much further there is still to go. What do you think? Has modern Hollywood truly learned from these hidden legacies? Or does the struggle for authenticity persist even today?